Welcome to the Whoop and the Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux.
And today we have a very special guest. We both known this guest for a number of years, and I believe that he really embodies the nature of this podcast. He straddles the line between being an entrepreneur and also an educator. On the education side, he is a Ph.D. candidate at Loyola University, and on the entrepreneur side, he's a public speaker, a social justice educator, and he is the founder of the Resistance Roundtables. I'd like to introduce our listeners and viewers to Mr. Johnnie Campbell.
What's going on, good people? How we doing? Happy to be here.
Now, we're going to jump, right into it. As a full-time, PhD candidate, tell us a little bit first off about your educational journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I want to thank y'all for this platform and for having me just be able to engage with you all in the good work y'all are doing. I truly appreciate that. In terms of 9 to 5, y'all, I am working at Northwestern. I just started there this fall semester after transitioning from a role at Iowa State University. So I kind of spent my higher education journey professionally at Iowa State, and am now working at Northwestern in their campus inclusion and community area, working with first generation college students, lower income college students, and also students who may identify with DACA and or undocumented students. So it's been a great opportunity to get some unique and different institutional context, knowledge, experience. Northwestern is a very rigorous institution, and those students are, just bright, intellectual. They have it. I absolutely love working with them. And I also identify as a first generation college student. So being able to pour into a population that is core and salient to my identities is very, very a blessing. To put long story short, it's challenging work, but it's just rewarding. So I'm happy to be there at that institution at this time.
I was going to say, for me, I'm a first generation college student as well. How do you guide someone that never been to college to what's the first step for them?
The first gen college experience is different on campus to campus, right? And so based off of the institution, that will determine the ways in which you will support and advocate for that particular group. And I tend to lead with that because typically or often you'll see that the first gen population also intersects with students of color, right? So there are students of color who also identify as first gen. And so you're dealing with this, okay, I want you to succeed and I want you to have the institutional capital, right? The capital, know where and who to go to so you can be successful on campus with you made it this far on your own. And that is to be regarded highly, right? And so I try my best to lead with a anti-deficit approach to supporting any students who hold marginalized or minoritized identities, but particularly for first gen students, because we often look at them through less than lenses when the population carries a lot of resources, a lot of cultural capital that have gotten them to where they are to this point. So I really think about it as, how can I add to you so that you can be your best self in this phase of your life? Really, that is my MO. That extends from things that I felt like I needed as a first gen student, starting my undergrad career, but also I see those similarities in a lot of the students that I work with.
And I think it's really important. And he touched on, oftentimes actually in higher education, we do look at students from these marginalized backgrounds in that deficit approach and say, okay, well, they need this, this, and this. And we tend to negate like you said, Johnny, like the qualities that help them to even get to the position that they're at right now in higher ed. Mm-hmm. So as a first generation student, I'm pretty sure that your students that you're, guiding, add a little bit more credence to what you're saying because you've walked the walk already and you've kind of
Hmm.
made it to where you're at. So how has that been able to help you with dealing with those students, like your personal testimony?
Yeah, absolutely. A part of it is a part of it is understanding that um, I'm going to make a broad and big statement, and I'm just going to prepare the folks for it now. Um, uh, the classroom can be a harmful place, right?
Mm,
And so I lead with that knowledge proactively, right? The same place where learning and growth and development happens is the same place where marginalization, uh, any tool of oppression, isms, you just add the first half of the syllable to it, racism, anything, right? These things are happening in education and in the classroom in the same breath. And so a part of my development has been unlearning things that um, those systems have um, inflicted upon myself, right? How can I unlearn these things? And so I think my experiences have taught me that um, recognizing that harm can happen in those spaces and that harm is pervasive, and I have to proactively deal with that when I'm engaging with students. I have to know that they have probably already experienced some form of harm, some form of marginalization, some form of oppression in school, right? You know, and this could be pre-K through 12, secondary education before they get to college, right? So understanding what those experiences have done to change the way they think about education, and then using that uh, to support and guide them to where they want to be at the end of the day.
Let's actually go back just a little bit because we all have our roots from WIU, and
Yeah.
that's where we all know each other from. So like
Mhm.
even going back to your time as an undergrad, did you know back then that you wanted to, pursue this doctorate degree that you're getting?
Absolutely not. Right. Let me just make that plain. I did not know where I was growing, what I was growing into. But I'm very thankful for people who helped me connect dots and what my impact meant during my time at Western. In my latter parts of Western, I started to hear people say, "Man, because of you, I graduated," or "Man, you helped me do this, you helped me do that." And I've always tried to reframe that. No, you did that, right? We just supported each other in the process. This is something that you always had in you. But my peers started to see that support from me, right? And my mentors helped me understand that, there's a place for that. That people get paid to do that. That's a profession. The type of support and the ways in which I would advocate for my peers, and it's particularly Black men, young Black men. That was something that became a passion area of mine. I speak to the experience of showing up to the classroom and automatically knowing, I was missing stuff, right, from that first generation experience. And even not even just identifying as first gen, is just the disparities in education in general, right? Uh, Students learn the disparity by showing up and finding out where they lacked things that higher education faculty, teachers, facilitators expect you to know, right? We call that the hidden curriculum. They're just things they expect you to know. They expect you to know about the financial aid process. They expect you to know what is the role of an academic advisor. They expect you to know, hey, here's where you go when you need this. You should already know this. They don't tell you that flat out, but that expectation is very, very much so communicated. And for me, I had to learn those things um, through challenge and trial and error because I did not know those things up front, right? I would never forget. I showed up to a theory course, and the professor expected me to know particular things, and I said, "I don't know what this is." He said, "Well, you might need to drop this class. This is the first week of class, right? We need to acknowledge that when you tell students that they're going to fail, in your first interaction with them, right? What psychologically does that do to a student, and how does that make them think about their capability to get a degree? But Western was um, one of the best experiences I could have had from my overall development and from my life, because I was able to go through those bumps and bruises so that hopefully, my future family doesn't have to, right? And so on and so forth.
Yeah, and so do you think that your experiences from Western and now in your 9 to 5, all those experiences combined, do you think that played a role into you kind of starting your own business?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I learned on my way out of Western was that I had a voice and that I needed to um, do something about it, right? That this was a challenge that was given to me by a mentor of mine. Is that, when you talk, people listen to you. You command rooms well, you command rooms effectively, and that can mean well for your future, right? So somebody planted a seed to where I am now, and I believe my platform centrally, right, focuses on identities who don't often feel like they have a voice, but it gives them a platform so that they have one, and that they can utilize it, and that their knowledge is valuable, right? And that their experiences, whether that's formal or informal, all come together to make you who you are and unique to the world. And what you have for the world can be shared on this platform. And I tend to, I lead that through a education context, but that's for me life work. That's just what it means to impact people's lives in general, is to be able to provide that, but also to help undo injustices that exist. That is, I have grown to uh, really have a desire to take on that challenge. I want to dismantle anything that can impede any student's success, really. But students who are often um, framed as through that less than um, perception, those are the ones who I take a particular attention to, because I know what that feels like and what that means for our futures, especially for Black and Brown people. I want to make that plain as well.
I think that's a good segue to our quote of the week. So, typically we have a quote that we use for every episode, and the quote for this week actually comes from you, and it comes from your website. And you said that your very existence is a form of resistance. So,
Mm.
one, I'd like you to kind of break down that quote, and then how that has kind of led to you forming, the Resistance Roundtables.
Yeah, I love that quote too. Just hearing you say it gave me a little chill too, just to hear it, brother. I mean, whew, that is um, an ode to fill in the blank as resistance, right? How do you utilize just various forms of it, right? The best thing that could have, the best thing that came out of oppression is resistance,
Mm.
persistence, right? The will to uh, dismantle oppressive systems, right? And so I employ that, within my platform, to let folks know that, especially and particularly folks who hold marginalized identities, minoritized identities, right? I think about, Black women, right, in particular, right? Uh, um, a scholar once coined it as multiple marginalization for Black women, right? However, these are of the most educated people in this country, right? That's a form of resistance, right? That's what it means to exist uh, in the context of resistance for me, right? When you show up places that were historically not meant for you, or when you arrive in a space that knowingly and unknowingly tries to exclude you, right? Or even tries to exploit your expertise, your skill set, your knowledge, your ways of knowing, being, and doing. And when you show up, it's a disruption. just showing up to those spaces because one, people didn't expect you to be there, right? Someone somewhere didn't expect Johnny to be in this PhD space. And I'm here to remind them, thank you, because out of that birth my will to resist, right? This is what's the this is the beauty in what it means to find your voice and uh, learn what it means when you use it effectively. So for me, that quote is letting people know, hey, when you show up, you're already doing the work because you showed up, right? Folks didn't anticipate black men to show up and say, hey, this is Dr. John, right? This is Dr. Johnny. This is, some of the black men that we know that hold PhDs that we've intersected with, and how powerful it is for them to be there, right? Just exist in that space, spaces that were not and historically not meant for you. But knowing that, systems of oppression, uh, Dr. Patricia Hill Collins said, they are always and already present, right? So they're there before you show up, but they were always there, right? So the isms and the biases and implicit, explicit biases and all of these things were already there before you showed up, waiting on you, right? And I think that that justifies my argument that having a resistance lens can be effective to your overall well-being and also your thriving in any space.
So, what are some of the services that your business offers to kind of expand that knowledge to those who may not
Mhm.
know?
First, we'll start with the roundtable discussions. So these are monthly roundtable discussions where we bring together folks that have expertise in the subject matter that we will discuss. And so I determine that subject matter, one, based off of things that I see pervasive in education, in education research, but also in the feedback that I get from those who support the Resistance Roundtable. So if when I engage with folks, when I go out and speak, I do very, very diligent assessment work to hear what are the needs of the people, what are the needs of students, what are the needs of their families, what are the needs of our communities. So I know upcoming we will have a roundtable discussion, just talking about access to college, right? So my prior experiences before now were in admissions and in enrollment management. So in understanding what it means to apply to school, when to apply to school, when to prepare for those standardized tests that we need to talk about as historically problematic as well. But that's another story. But just what it means to gain access to, and then to gain access to it in a particular way, right? Some of the things that I learned about gaining access to college, right? I learned when it was already too late to get things that made that access easier, right? And more obtainable. And so we'll be talking about that soon. And then going forward, we'll also be talking about how to, obtain a master's degree. If you want to obtain a master's degree, how do you do it? How do you get it? And how do you get a free one, right? How do you make these things happen that often aren't talked about, right? When you're first year and you get that bachelor's degree, you're like, you look, th- nobody before me got this. This is monumental, right? And you will center that so much, but to have someone say, you know, you're capable of more than that, right? Like to have that person in your ear, I think will help push us forward too.
And not to cut you off, but I don't want that to go unnoticed because that's a very, very important thing that you just said. Like for me, in my own personal experience, when I got to Western, I transferred there from a community college. I didn't even know that there was a such thing as like a post, undergrad degree. I didn't know anything about the
Mhm,
masters. I didn't know that professors at a college have a doctorate. That's just something that I
mhm,
didn't know growing up. The high school that I went to, the community that I was involved in, those were things that just weren't spoken of.
mhm,
But the same way that you just said, it's really important about the people that you surround yourself with because I did have a mentor, who was like, hey, you're getting ready to wrap up your bachelor's. Have you thought about going to get your master's? And he was like, you can get your master's and you can start teaching with that. Had he not even told me that that was an option, I probably would have, just tried to go straight into like the workforce. But it's
mhm,
very important for these people who come from these marginalized backgrounds because they don't have access to a lot of this information. And
Mhm.
that goes back to that cultural capital, the social capital that we talked about
Mhm.
earlier. If you don't have access to people who have that knowledge, then sometimes you go without.
And deeper, right? How do you know you need that, right? Do you know if that you need that? Sometimes people don't know what they need until they learn that they need it. What experiences do you need to come into? What do you have to engage with to learn what you need, right? I think that this is how, like, now, like, we're seeing students show up with so many different interests. They don't know what they need when they get to college. They don't know what they. So some folks, say, yeah, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, the big three, right? I want to be this, health, law, right? These things. But this is socializing to them, right? Somebody told them that's what they needed. But students have to grow into what they need on their own, right? This is why colleges can be a very powerful experience for them, because they get to figure that out, right? And I'm very, very grateful to have had experiences that helped me figure it out. Because once I figured it out, school became easier. One, right? Because I was more invested into my learning because I knew that this was what I needed.
Yeah,
And
and
Glenn,
even
oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead,
I
John.
was going to say, I'm actually interested for Glenn, since you're the other, first gen student. Did you have that same experience when you, went to school? Like, people told you like, hey, you should major in this, or
Yeah,
this.
yeah, you know what? I mean, when you go to school, especially being the first generation, college student, you don't know. All you know is what people say or what you see on TV or what makes the most money or what you deem to be successful. Like you don't know. So it's all it's like Russian roulette. You just trying to gamble with it, right? And you get there and you start to see like, yo, there is other majors outside of business, outside of being a lawyer and things like that. And it kind of opens your eyes to different avenues you can kind of go through. So, I mean, that really kind of brings me to my question is, where people see what success is, right? And they look at it as, being a doctor, being a lawyer, like you said, the big three, and they don't know that like you can be successful in other avenues, other majors. So, what would you say success looks like to you today?
Mm. Such a dope question, bro. I really appreciate it. For one, I think success for me is being able to show up, my whole full and best self, and not have to put on a face, not have to put on anything. How I show up is uh, true to who I am, and that is what is why this is meaningful, whatever it is, whether it's work, whether it's life. So one thing I want to talk about with that too, in terms of success. Um, One of my professors shared this with us because we were talking about this idea of work-life balance, right? And the myth of it, right? So for one, I want to share that for me, success is knowing that work and life are not equal, right? Work is not does not equate to life, right? So the idea of work-life balance, that myth makes us keeps us in the mindset of the worker. And historically, right, in my learnings of growing into this social justice educator, we start to learn more about marginalization from the stories of workers, right? Work existed before education did. And so we started to learn it particularly qualitatively from their stories, their experiences. And so for me, is I tell people to stay true to themselves and show up their best self, because when people try to shift that, that's problematic. Just period, right? And the best thing you can do is add to this form of best self, and that's success for me, right? When you're able to do something, love it, and it speaks to who you are. It speaks to your core, the core of your being, and you're able to do it. You wake up, you can't stop thinking about it. For me, I can't do something and not love it. I'm not going to stick it out, right? This is something that I have to absolutely love to do, and I learned that very early on. Uh, I'm first gen and low income, so I started working at an early age, and I knew when I hated what I was doing. Right, that's the first thing I learned. Before I learned to love what I was doing, I definitely learned what I did not like in terms of work and the type of work I was doing. Right, this was crucial to my learning because I knew then something greater was for me. Right, I just needed to find out what it was, and I think that's my next parts of what success means is being in purpose driven spaces, showing up your whole and best full self unapologetically, right? And being able to understand that the things we're doing, and the things that we define as work, it's not does not equate to life. There's make sure that you're able to center your success around your life. Your life is bigger than um, what we're doing, right? From a 9 to 5 or otherwise.
Now, this is what episode 5 or 6, I can't remember, but this word purpose has been in every single episode that we've done so
Mm,
far. Every guest that we bring on talks about the importance of finding their purpose and how that translates into whatever it is that they're doing career wise. So,
mm,
how was it for you to find your purpose and knowing that you're kind of walking in that purpose?
mm. Uh, it was enlightening and rewarding when I knew, that I was in my purpose. I was able to reflect back to things that connected to how I learned what my purpose was. Right. When I came, I said, you know what, I think this is it. This is what I feel like I'm called to do. Right. And then when I came to that realization, I can pinpoint moments that it was already there. Right. I just had to arrive at it in its right time, right? Where I was ready to take it on, and I was ready to now move with purpose. Now that I've found it, now I have to move with it. And so for me, I think that is really uh like the saying goes, two most important days of your life is the day you're born, and then the day you find out why. And I think I hold on to that very, very that's core to how I feel about that purpose piece.
Now, I'm curious because you're saying a lot of good
Yeah.
things, and you made a distinction between finding your purpose and
Mm,
then moving in your purpose.
mm,
Why do you think it is that a lot of people may know, what, drives them, so they identify what their purpose is, but
mm,
they don't move in it? Like, why,
mm.
why do you think that's the case?
Just because you find purpose don't mean that there's a desire there to move with it. I think that those are two totally different processes that uh, I think divine timing is just really crucial to that, right? You have to find it in its right time. And I think that when you do find it, you have to have the capacity to nurture and build it and grow it and take care of it because this is what we're like, this is going to drive the rest of your life. Purpose things don't leave, especially when you know that that's what it is. It's going to stick with you. I wake up thinking about the things that I do. What are you doing to uh grow yourself and elevate and rise to the occasion of your purpose? Because if it is your purpose, it's monumental. It is that big, and it can be scary. It can bring people to anxiety when they think about how big it is, right? But I
And,
think that it's just important that we acknowledge that those are two separate processes for sure.
all right, and it's funny you say that because John and I were speaking last week about fear, right? And
Mm,
just the fear of things being so big that they don't get started or whatever. Do you think
mm.
people can actually miss their purpose if they're not nurturing it or aware of it or what?
Uh, Whether or not they can miss their purpose, I think it depends on the purpose itself and the magnitude of what it is, right? Um, I think that people can arrive at something and miss the blessing that was supposed to come in that moment. But if it's meant for you to do it, it will come back to you. That I do believe that firmly, and it will show up in one way or another. Especially if you continue moving in the right direction. And I think that that's what it also boils down to. Some people who miss it, they're not moving, right? A mentor of mine will say, in order for you to um, be put in the right direction, you have to be moving.
I think that brings us right back to your business, the Resistance Roundtables. So you did mention that you have those roundtable discussion once a
Mhm.
month. But then what are the other aspects of it? Because I believe you do trainings as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I engage with businesses, organizations, institutions, um, and we talk social justice education, and we engage with one another through that. And that has ranged, in my experience so far, to folks talking about implicit bias, uh, uh, racial inequity in the workplace, racial and ethnic inequity in the workplace, um, or just talking about um, this idea of anti-racism, which is, anti-racist is becoming the popular term for the season. Is uh, Since Dr. Ibram Kendi's book has come out, now we have, various institutions and organizations aiming to coin themselves as an anti-racist organization or an anti-racist institution, right? But to embody that, right, to call yourself that and then embody that is that is a very tedious process that takes a lot of work and a lot of bridge building within your organization. So my bachelor's degree is in organizational communication and interpersonal communication. So I think that helps develop me as a speaker, but more importantly, it helps me to understand the idea of bridges, right? Who are the most impactful and most uh, in, influential people in your institution, in your organization? Because what they say, it changes the way other people think and behave. And if we apply that through a social justice education lens, right, we can then utilize that type of power, and this is really power dynamics at play, to do make sure that that work is being carried out. And I think that that is, how do you make that realistic, right, in what you do as an organization or institution. So the resistance roundtables, that I've spent a lot of time talking about that, with companies, um, colleges and universities, all the way to the point of me engaging with students, student leaders, um, who might have equity, diversity, and inclusion in their purview for what they're doing within their activity within organizations. I've done a lot of work with sorority and fraternity life, and they are uh, actively trying to do work around that, around equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I've been called upon by a couple institutions to help them and help provide training for that too. But you'll find that some of the most common things are the biggest challenges. Folks just don't want to talk about race, right? It's just scary to talk about, right? We have to make social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion less taboo of a conversation, right? Because in the field that I'm in and the expertise that I am in, it's a regular, common conversation to talk about, right? And you have to get through that, because that can be a barrier for folks. It changes the way people speak and it changes the way people listen, or if they choose to speak at all or not, because of the idea of, if we talk about race, is it's too tough of a topic, or it's too taboo, or it doesn't belong in certain spaces. I do not proclaim myself as the expert of it, but I do let folks know that there are tools that we can all commonly develop so that we can collaboratively do the work. Social justice should be a collaborative, intersectional process and goal. It is a goal and a process, right? Which means that it's cyclical. You have to continue to do it if you want to make sure that you are providing a socially just environment for people.
What do you think that some of your biggest challenges are when trying to get these companies and organizations to kind of foster that, you know, making it not so taboo when it comes to race? What is some of your biggest challenges for that?
Dope question. For one, who's doing the work, right? And what do they look like? Um, very, very, it's very easy to have your resident person of color or professional of color or a committee of professionals of color uh, to shoulder that work. The problem with that is they are inflicted by the thing that they're also working against, right? I think that is important to acknowledge that, you know, people who hold marginalized identities bring us a specific lens to this work because they know what the oppression feels like, even if they don't understand what it is. They know what it feels like because it doesn't feel good, right? It's not necessarily a pleasant experience to, deal with any ism or to deal with any form of bias in a workplace or to be seen through a less than lens in any space, right? So they bring that lens, right? But very much so, the challenge is we're calling on folks who hold dominant identities to do the work. They're the ones who need to really think about what doing the work of unlearning and learning means, right? What things have you learned that contributes to these issues that you say you want your organization or institution to dismantle, right? The reality is sometimes it might be you. You might be the direct issue that we are talking about, and it's very hard for people to. That's a hard pill to swallow for anybody. I think anyone who has a dominant identity, whether it's dealing with race, ethnicity, age, ability, religion, right, sexual orientation, etc. Right, you hold a privilege in those identities in some way, form, or fashion. And so when we talk about social justice, you will have to deal with the unlearning of how your privilege and your dominant identities, right? Or gender, for instance, right? Us as males, we hold a male privilege, right? So how does that impact the way we think, behave, and exist? And how does that impact those who have minoritized identities within that, right? So that is the biggest and greatest and most complex challenge that we can talk about because that then also informs, again, the way we think, act, and be, right? So when we develop policy, when we develop rules, regulations, when we develop norms, right? All of these things are connected to the way we exist, right? The way we think, right? These are man-made things. They are very imperfect, right? So they deserve that type of scrutiny. But if everyone does not have a competency for the scrutiny, then that's another greater challenge. So I think our work helps people, helps level that playing field in terms of equitable skill set and knowledge base and lenses for it, right? And knowing how to use those lenses. I often when I talk with my students, I use a picture, those glasses that you wear, and when you lift them up, they have the different colors on them, and it changes
Yeah.
colors. Like if I put red and blue together, I get purple. This is kind of how I think people need to think about doing social justice work because you need a diverse set of lenses to do it, right? When you show up in different rooms, different opportunities for the work exist, right? And it is an opportunity, right? We need to start thinking about it more through that anti-deficit perception. It's an opportunity for you to liberate uh, spaces and liberate spaces for the benefit of those who have historically been underrepresented, right, and marginalized for some time. So, long time coming, really, for the work and for us to center the work more. And I want to acknowledge those that have come before me to do the work, the scholars that I learn from on a regular basis, because without them, I wouldn't even be here.
And I think it's really important the work that you are doing, but how challenging is it as the business owner to get the I guess your company out there, to get
Mm,
people to invite you, to their company to do this work?
mm. Tough. It's super tough. I think a part of it is uh, establishing a network that that has folks that are in rooms that you're not in, and that folks will speak to you and to your on your behalf in rooms that you're not able to do so for yourself. So I do believe that that networking piece has been important. I would say that due to COVID-19, I've had more access to people because of this platform, because of Zoom, right? I've been able to do maybe more work than my time would allow because I've been able to virtualize the work that I've provided, and so that will remain for me a mainstay for the Resistance Roundtables and for my platform as a speaker, because it just keeps me connected to folks in this time more so than I probably would have been, someone who's working a job and pursuing a PhD, at the same time. Time is just limited, and so um, the toughest thing though has just been, getting in new rooms. With that being said, right, just not even being able to be out and about and to make those connections. But very generally, I'm associated with a lot of memberships that deal with education, right? So ASH, ACPA, NASPA, these are associations that are connected to education, higher ed professionals, student affairs work, right? And these are people who are regularly grappling with it. But then also people that are just connected to me in general, right? I'll get an opportunity from folks that might not work in education, but they know that exists, right, in their spaces, and they'll call upon me there. But it's a challenge for sure, particularly in this season. But I think that my skill set as that I learned in my bachelor's kind of helps that. What I do with my community, my org com work, my communication work, helps me to communicate my platform and what I'm able to provide folks effectively. And if they stop by the website and they see what I'm offering, and they see my CV and they see the work that I've been doing, and they see that it's potentially impactful, then we'll be ready to work.
And I think Glenn mentioned it on one of the previous podcasts about how COVID has forced a lot of individuals and business owners to adapt. And, that's what I'm hearing from what you're saying, like how you were able to, start using Zoom as a platform and,
Mm,
investing in yourself and taking these courses that are being offered for free. And I
mm,
think with this pandemic, it has made networking and connecting a tad bit easier. I won't say like
mm,
completely easy, but a little bit easier to the point like even we're having this conversation right now, via Zoom.
mm,
Pre-COVID, we would have all had to be in the same room. And I'm assuming like, even with other networking opportunities, because I will say that, and I'm not just saying this, like I've been watching like some of those resistance roundtables, and more
mm.
specifically, I think the one was First Gen Proud,
Yeah.
and just the discussion and being able to get all of those scholars, from different institutions
Mm,
um, on the same platform is extremely commendable. So
mm,
technology has given us ways to connect with people that we probably haven't been utilizing prior to COVID. And I just think as a business owner, it's one of the important things is to be able to use technology to our advantage. And it appears that's what you're doing. But I wanted to shift gears to something even on a lighter note, because
mm,
I know you mentioned that you said like work life balance is a myth. And I love the way that you
mm.
broke that down, but you're doing a lot of different things. And one of the things that I came across, because I follow you on Instagram, and I saw you and your girl put together a dance, and I know you have your choreography business. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about the JC experience.
So I started the JC Experience now, and really just as a platform for me to be creative, but to also work with other people that like doing the same, and that also believed in my talent and my craft in that regard. And so whether that was with choreography or with singing or whatever, I wanted that to be an outlet for that, and it's been fruitful, right? In my downtime, I teach hip hop. I love teaching hip hop. I have always taught it, right? But now this is, the first time that I've been able to teach it, uh, and, make it a business. So I'll teach workshops to folks. Folks remember the work that I've done, even pre WIU, right? I've been actively involved in hip hop dance, I'm talking since the early 2000s, since before college. So that's a wealth of talent and also knowledge that I didn't just want to go to waste, but also maybe I can help future generations in the dance community by just imparting my knowledge and experience into them, and it's been pretty successful thus far. So, but CC and I, CC is a my partner. She's been in dance since she was a child, and she's been grounded in all different various forms of dance. And so that just kind of a thing that we had share in common, and that really is a fun thing to do. So we were just up at night, and she said, let's record a video. I want to record a little TikTok. I said, well, all right, well, let's do it. And the rest is history. I'm always down to you know have some good time doing what I love to do.
You mentioned something earlier about how you surround yourself with people that kind of motivate you to kind of keep going. How important has that been in like your JC experience? Motivate, like having people around you that motivate you.
Yeah, so I have two counterparts that both attended Western as well. So Jonathan Stewart and then Rudy Dillon. These are two people that have trained under me for years, right? So I knew that when I started the platform, I wanted a collective of people that know the value of what I bring to that, and that know me for me, put everything else to the side. They know Johnny to the core of Johnny, and those are two people that do. Those are two loving brothers that I love to life. Like these are two of the best men that I know. So they agreed to, partner with the JC Experience now and to help me do things. Or they very much so help with creative processes. They help me think of things. They keep me centering the JC Experience, and we collaborate on a lot of things as well, much like we did in undergrad when we were at Western. So that networking piece, that piece with JC Experience has been just as important, because I mean, I'm only one person. I only have so many ideas in my mind. They help
Yeah.
me stay fresh, current, and they help me thinking about things in new ways. And help me to be creative in new ways as well.
I think for me personally, when I'm looking at something that an individual is presenting, the amount of resources that they devote to it shows me like their level of commitment. And I will say, when I watch these videos that Johnny has posted, like on YouTube, the
Man, right?
production value is there. I'm
Mhm.
like they on a bridge, over here dancing in all black suits.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, so I mean, that just stands out to me as a spectator. Like, man, he's really not only pouring his all into the choreography aspect, but even the visuals, so that they are getting like the full experience of whatever his vision was while he was doing the choreography. So actually, that leads me to this question. So when you're developing the choreography for to some of these songs that you're doing, do you already have like a vision in mind, like this is how I want it to look?
Mm.
I want this to be the set. I want the outfits to be like this. Do you take that holistically, or do you kind of offset some of that to some of your collaborators?
Man, like I said earlier about, like, I'm always thinking about this stuff. Right. I was driving down Lakeshore Drive. I saw that bridge. I said, I'm gonna do something on that bridge. It was over with. Like, that's all I needed to see was that. I said, I know what I want to do. I want this to be. I develop a storyline. I develop look, and I want to shout out huge, big time New Pixel Films is who I've worked with to shoot, and they offer my videography for whatever projects that I'm working on. So shout out to New Pixel Films. But they help bring it to life. I have an idea. I'll send the concept. Hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing, right? And also, like, the presentation means a lot to me because I'm no longer an undergrad. I don't dance. I'm not a member of a dance team, but shout out to House Arrest too, right? Where that's where a lot of my development, came from. But this is me and under my name. This is just Johnnie Campbell's thing. And for it to be in its own lane, I really wanted to make it unique and impactful in its own regard, so people can be inspired by it, by the creativity that was involved in it.
I'm always excited about something that I have absolutely no talent in. So I'm not a dancer. So, anybody who can move like that, I'm like, man, take my hat off to them.
Yeah, because
I
I can't
love
do that.
proving the people wrong because they don't expect it.
Well, Johnny, let me ask you this then. What can people expect from you in the next coming year for
Mm.
2021 for JC Experience and your roundtable?
Yeah, anticipate. One, I'm increasing my designs for TRR apparel regularly. I'm just working diligently to expand that catalog, and I mean, TRR apparel's purpose is to be a visual representation of what the work means for me, right? But the visual representation of resistance, right? So you get to embody that externally. So I'm going to continue to pour into that. It's my hope that we are able to broaden the ways in which we educate people. And so I'm thinking about new ways to do that. I'm also working on developing a conference expo type of event that's related to this social justice education platform that I'm on. And so that is something that folks will be able to look forward to, where they can get access to just a lot of different bodies of knowledge and people who provide knowledge and education and resources and services. So that is something that I'm partnering with um, uh, a dope individual that we all know. That'll be coming soon. Looking forward to that. And then with the JC experience now is, I'm now back in Chicago, so it's my hope that I can dive into my creativity a little bit more deeply since I'm here and I have more access to folks that I've worked with over the years. You can definitely hope to see just some creative outlets being shared. It's needed in this time. It helps. This is like self care for me, so that will be something that you'll see coming real soon.
And then to wrap it up, what would you say has been the key for you to get to the place that you're at right now?
Wow. Well, one, I center. I am a faith based individual, right? So I think my belief uh, uh, is that I'm called to do what I'm doing, and I center that. I pray. I live in a household that prays. I have a praying mother, um, and um, I stand on that, right? And then also, um, I feel like I get just as much back from the people I work with and engage with as what I aim to put out. Right. I always get positive impact from colleagues and scholars and students. This might be in education or students in just in a classroom with the JC experience. It's all learning at the end of the day, and it's all beneficial for me. So that will always push me. And then I want to especially, shout out my partner Cece, who is one of the best support systems that I could ask for. She is always there. She's my biggest supporter. She is my biggest fan, my best friend. She is definitely a huge motivator for me because I mean, there's just nothing like having somebody believe in you the same way you believe in yourself, if not more, and sometimes. So that in that order, faith, family, and just a dope black woman that loved me, and then
Oh yeah.
those that support me. So
And I lied because now I do have one more question because I just thought about something that you mentioned earlier.
mm,
And I think it actually ties into one of the quotes from your video where you said that as
mm,
long as you're continually learning, your process is never complete. So, um,
mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that concept of mentorship, and you're constantly learning from
Yeah.
somebody else. And this
Hmm.
mentorship is something that we've discussed, multiple episodes here. But you kind of spoke to it a little bit earlier about, having mentors in your life, and then you also transitioning to being a mentor yourself. Like,
Hmm.
what advice would you give to somebody who is seeking out mentorship? Because that is a,
Mm.
a common question that we get all the time.
Yeah. Um, know that people have their own experience with things. It's okay to have multiple mentors for multiple purposes. Um, for me, I have several. I have mentors that I've engaged with during my time at Western, during my time as a professional, during my time growing as a scholar, right? And I am inspired by them for several reasons. But you still, regardless, need to have the ability to sift, right? Some folks will tell you things that you might not be ready to hear at the time, or you might not want to hear, but if you can sift and take the things of benefit, you can gain from every bit of knowledge that you get from folks. Uh, and it's okay to be critical about the type of uh, messages you receive, even from a mentor. Right? They're not knowers of all. Right? They only know their experiences of things, and to acknowledge that, but know that the value can be great if that's something you choose to take advantage in. And if the opportunity arises for you to be a mentor to somebody, walk in it and understand what was required for you might look totally different from them. And it's really all about filling up their toolboxes so that they can uh, walk their journeys effectively, right? Don't walk it for them, but give them the tools that they need so that when they go on their journey, they have what they need to be successful.
Johnny, thank you for coming on, man. We truly, truly do appreciate you. And if you guys have heard, make sure you guys check out the Roundtable as well as the JC Experience. Again, I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux. So if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. And whatever you listen on, make sure you subscribe.
And once again, Johnny, I just want to thank you as well for, taking the time out of your busy, busy schedule, because as a doctoral student, I just know that eats up enough time as is. But then with all the other things that you're involved with, we know that time is scarce for you. So we do thank you for taking out your time out of your day to impart knowledge to us, and then also to our listeners. So for our listeners and viewers, make sure that you guys check him out. This has been another episode of the Wolf and the Doctor podcast. We'll see you guys next week.